Okay, so let's kick it off. I want to try and frame everything. If you want to advance the slide, Jonathan, let's talk about some of the key global trends that we're seeing in the marketplace now that are really affecting everything. And so, obviously, are not you're not missing the fact that unfortunately we have a shooting conflict happening now in the Ukraine, which is I think stressful and challenging for everybody. And um, we don't want to talk about it from a war perspective necessarily, although it's impacting economy and different things like that. But really, I think some of the key things is what it's doing to global geopolitics. All right, and we have in our industry, obviously, we have a lot of our robotic products are dominated by Chinese made products. Let's call it exactly what it is. And so one of the biggest challenges is potential geopolitical conflict with China and our main source of the supply. And so there's pressure. We're seeing it south of the border with the U.S. Florida has already banned DJI drones specifically. More general Chinese. There's some pressure happening. We haven't seen it as much up here in Canada. Certainly from Canadian-owned companies, it's not as big an issue. But nonetheless, I don't think the conflict is going away soon, and there's always potential, unfortunately, for these things to escalate. And so, Fraser, what does that mean for people running UAS programs in North America right now, and in Europe for that matter? But what does it really mean? What happens if all of a sudden we can't use Chinese robotic products?
Well, like you mentioned, so the broader influence there is about what decision making you're going to do in terms of equipping your fleet.
Right.
We know that, like with most products, Chinese products are extremely good value, and they tend to be among the better options right now in drones and robotics for most use cases. And so, as there's more and more concern about this, some people may decide to opt for different choices, or they may lose the choice. They may lose the option to choose those better value systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting if you see what's happening in Florida now, which is the kind of the tip of the spear. Is there's huge pushback. There's huge pushback against the ban of Chinese drones, right? And they're saying, look, we need access to the very best products. We and it's damaging to the public safety to not be able to use the best products, and that's not even taking into consideration budgetary concerns.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. But fortunately, we are seeing the emergence really over the past couple of years of a Western, particularly U.S. made um, drone industry, which is becoming competitive.
Excellent. And so I think that's a nice segue, Fraser, into sort of the second of the global trends. We've got it up there as blue SUAS. It's not necessarily blue SUS. That's one small part of the program, but really it's, as Fraser said, is this development of a North American and European and Australian ecosystem of producers. Unfortunately, Canada is, even though we've got some good Canadian providers coming on, Canada, I'm embarrassed, frankly. We're way behind on this. It's disappointing. So Canadian companies, get off your asses and make some good stuff. But nonetheless, it's a training, it's a development program, excuse me, that's coming, and it's going to be very, very excited. So I guess the question is, what's the biggest thing that we've seen with non-Chinese made with the domestic and North American market? How are you feeling about it in general?
Well, in general, it's promising. So far, early on, what we tended to see was, um, competitors to DJI tackling a niche market because that's where they could make an impact. Because I think the dominance of DJI is no secret.
It's unquestioned.
So we'll just call that like it is. But more recently, there are some systems that are more generally used that are becoming, I would say, competitive. The value is not quite as good. The cost is high. Sometimes the user experience is not quite as good. We can chalk that up to just the scale that DJI has, perhaps. But the whole situation is becoming very promising. Like, these are really viable competitors to DJI at this point.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important thing, and I think it is important to take a moment here to just to separate the blue SUS. So, you know, the blue SUS and then the coming green SUAS. I think there's going to be a good webinar coming up on that later in the week from one of the other providers. But these are just small programs, right? And in fact, in a lot of ways, I think they do a disservice, right? The if you're looking at this, you should be very careful on whether you physically need a blue SUAS aircraft. Obviously, there are partners; they're good aircraft, but anytime you do that, Blue SUS is NDAA compliant, which is defense standards, which is going to be much more expensive. So the radios alone are more than the aircraft cost. So anytime you see Blue SUAS, and if you're a program manager and they're saying, I've got to have a Blue SUAS, you almost certainly do not have to have a Blue SUAS. That's certainly the safe thing to do, but it's probably going to cost you double. So if you don't need a Blue USUS, but you can't use a Chinese product, you do have lots of other options. FLIR has a new product out there. Parrot, I think, has the smartest strategy to this, which is they make their blue model with a Chinese made hobby grade controller, and it's half the price. And again, as Fraser said, the performance is comparable to DJI or Auto.
Yeah, I think the bottom line on that is that Blue SUS is intended to be a pre-approved list that you can buy from. Great, but anytime you're buying from a short list, that's inherently a limitation. So you may have other options. You call us, call who you buy from. Um, you may get advice that you need to hear.
Exactly. And I think as we look at this, you should always buy the best product at the best price, the best value for your organization. And that's we try to be as agnostic as possible as we can with the products that we vet. So if we're talking to you about it, it's something we've flown and we feel comfortable about. But it's important, again, we bring this up. We don't believe that there's any danger to any applications from utilizing Chinese made or non-Chinese made drones. We don't believe that. I don't buy into that. Um, the more important risk factor, though, is your organization may say something different, and particularly if you're U.S. owned, and there could be political things. So, as a program manager, you need to be aware and prepared, just like we are, that there's options with you, so you don't have to shut down your program. That's the most important thing. But I want to reiterate, we have no issues with any of the Chinese products or manufacturers, and or recommending them for pretty much all applications.
Yeah, so well said. Like us, for our part, we're not really particular to any one manufacturer. Like our loyalty is always to the customer. So we want to recommend what's best for a certain use case or a certain customer. Right now, that is often a Chinese product. But if you can't buy a Chinese product, we can recommend something else.
Right.
This is the benefit of where we are now in the industry. We have viable alternatives.
Right, and that's the most important thing, because it hasn't always been that way, right? So before it was like, but now we can comfortably tell you that whether it's a blue SUAS platform or a non-blue SUAS platform, it's going to perform what you need to. So anyway, let's shift gears and talk about the last trend. This is more of a domestic trend than a global trend necessarily, although I'm sure it's probably global. And that is, we've got our decaying infrastructure. So everywhere you look, there's bridges are falling apart. There's all kinds of roads. There's potholes. There's everything. And so obviously, if we read the news, the economy is going to be terrible and everything is going to be bad, and we're all going to be living in the streets. So generally speaking, that indicates that there could and should be infrastructure spending to stimulate the economy. So one of the trends is going to be for the continued need to inspect old infrastructure and prepare, replace, inspect, install new infrastructure. So, Fraser, what do you think is the most important thing about the infrastructure trend we're seeing right now?
Well, as it relates to us in this industry, we have this sort of the obvious use case for drones and robotic technologies to gather the data that can help make good decisions about these infrastructure assets. So there's an opportunity here for everyone in the industry to make broader use of drones and robotic technologies for gathering data. And the other one is this is sort of a hot topic, of course. So AI analytics for detecting, assessing, maybe classifying defects in these assets. So that's sort of another hot button issue. There's definitely going to be a trend towards implementing those technologies, not only because they're so trendy, but partly because of that.
Right.
And so really those are the two items, I think. The need for broader use of drones and the implementation of AI.
Absolutely. So, Jonathan, if you could just up to the slide. So that was a beautiful segue by Fraser. He's not the best in the business for nothing. So let's talk about some of the specific market trends that we're looking at. And Fraser hit the first one on the head, and this is the rise of AI. So again, this is why you should never watch the news. If you're watching ChatGPT is going to take over the world, go full Terminator on us. Kids are going to never write their own essays. They're all going to cheat. Nobody's going to have any jobs. Anyways, it's a lot of scary stuff out there. But here's the thing: AI is here. It's not going away, and it's very important. So we're going to talk about this, through the course of the week in detail with experts. But it also ties very much into the second trend, which you can see there is 89% of manufacturers have a shortage of skilled workers, and that applies to all of the industries that we've seen, particularly infrastructure inspection, any kind of construction related inspections. This is an old field. And it hasn't been sexy. So it's not like my millennial or Gen Z colleagues are, rushing to get into infrastructure inspection. So there's a bunch of us old farts in there with all the expertise, and it's getting hard to find them, and newer people are not necessarily wanting to come in. So between the two of them, it indicates a pretty extensive need, wouldn't you say, Fraser?
Yeah, and this also applies more broadly in other industries where there are types of roles in which there's a labor shortage, where robotics and drones can help fill the gap.
Absolutely. And so that's going to become more and more important. And I know you and I were talking with a customer a while ago, talking about their maintenance run before and after spot. So maybe give us a bit of background on that.
Sure, and this is something we've heard actually more than once, but not just in inspection applications, but in maybe industrial manufacturing, resource extraction. There's a lot of labor that goes into things like reading gauges, confirming the presence of safety equipment, doing these sort of basic checks, if you will, that are relatively easy for a drone or robot to do. And when we implement a robotic system to do that, it means that the skilled person who's supposed to be assessing this spends their time doing that rather than out in the field collecting data. And there's an additional benefit that there's less subjectivity in the data collection method, because someone could read a gauge and either note that it's within range or abnormal, but it's much better to have a photograph or a recorded value for that check.
Absolutely. So the other couple of trends we're looking at is also sort of on the autonomy, but that's more advanced autonomy and AI. So that's utilizing AI not for inspections, but for the actual navigation to get sensors to collect certain data. And so we'll talk about that extensively throughout the week as well. But we're very excited about those trends. And then the last market trend really is the need for drone data management. So I've said this a few times, if you're going back to the old inter-drone shows, even, 6 years ago, and there was all kinds of drone data management companies, they all went bankrupt, right? Because just nobody had it. But now all of a sudden, when we talk about, automating inspections, automating the analysis of these inspections with AI, there's going to be way more data, and there's going to be a need for keeping tabs on that data. And so we have excellent partners like Key AI, Levitas, that are working to address those problems that are going to be very, very exciting. So
it's going to be important because, so we're talking about this in the context of a labor shortage, and you made a reference to infrastructure spending, which was a response to a labor or to a economic crisis like in the 30s. So if we talk about this at a very broad scale, we're thinking about drones and robots as a labor-saving device. Well, if there's somebody flying the robot, it's not really a labor-saving device. Mm-hmm. So automizing the actual data collection is going to be a hugely important trend as well.
Excellent. Jonathan, if you would. So let's kind of segue and talk about some specific technology groups that that we really want to see watching for here in 2023. So we can go one more, please, Jonathan. So we've got a couple of different ones here, and anytime I can get a 1970s movie reference into a slide, it makes me very happy. The Swarm,
Conversation.
a classic horror film. I highly recommend it if you. It's probably not on Netflix, but you could probably find it if you dig it up. But a few things we want to talk about. So first thing, bottom right, drone in a box. Drone in a box is everywhere.
We're really excited about it.
And we're really excited about it, absolutely. And so we talked about autonomy, we talked about labor shortage. Boom, that's exactly what you have. That this is the result of that, right? Is we're going to automate as much of the data collection as we possibly can, and things are going to flow from there. Pilot shortage, analysis shortage, everything. But some of the rest of the technology that we see on there is also very exciting, and some of it is complementary. So bottom left there is a one of our partners, Tomahawk Robotics. That's primarily a military spec product right now, but basically that is a common control system for multiple platforms, multiple modes of platforms. So this kind of ties into a lot of the themes that we're talking about. Number one, this idea of a swarm, being able to control multiple drones at the same time. So why is that something that's going to be important, not just for public safety, but also in the inspection side as well?
Well, this is really beneficial for someone who needs to be mobile. So I'm thinking about inspection crews, public safety, and especially in tactical applications. Obviously, everything's more mobile if you don't have to carry a separate ground station for every type of vehicle that you're using. Another benefit is that you've got a single control interface. So there's a benefit there in familiarity, a lower training time, maybe even better results operationally because you're using a single interface to control these different systems. And so there's less of a downside to switching systems in terms of it. You're going to be able to operate each of them hopefully just as well. And there's a similar benefit to the data pipeline as well. It's always coming to one place.
Yeah, so much easier to look at it live. So very, very important. So right now, primarily a mil spec product, but I was talking with somebody literally this weekend. They're working on developing this as a civilian project, which is fantastic, and I think it's going to be very important. The other thing there is you can see a number of really cool new platforms. There's the Autel Max 4. There's the new Teal 2. There's a Parrot Anafi AI, and there's a Deep Trekker ROV. So this is another trend is going to be multimodal control. So not only are we going to be controlling aircraft or multiple aircraft with the same controller, we're going to be controlling and therefore using ROVs, spot or other ground robotics, crawlers, everything. And again, all those things that Fraser just said apply. Because if we're using robotic data collection for one mode, we're going to use it on multiple modes. And that's a really, really exciting trend that we're seeing out there. Jonathan, if you would move us up. Some of the software and AI technologies to watch, we've kind of singled out three out of many. Levitas out of Florida, Key AI, who is a fine Canadian institution, thank goodness, and Watc as well, also out of Florida. Florida seems to be a drone hotbed. I think we should have a southern office down there.
I'll go ahead that up.
You're going to set that up, okay? So talk to me about software now.
Mm-hmm.
The way we look at it at RMUS compared to like 3-4 years ago. What was the only software we really cared about 3 years ago for drones?
Probably Pix4D.
Pix4D.
Yeah. So
shout out the Skybrowse and Bobby. We do love the Skybrowse, but really those two mapping software, right?
Yeah, and so big changes coming here. So it's always a challenge when we need to learn to do things in a different way, but the reason we do that is because it's going to bring many benefits as well. So I'll take the example of Watc here because perhaps it's simpler to explain. Watc is a fleet management software, but it's also more than that. So in the past, fleet management software has been kind of a background thing. We manage flight logs, maybe we generate some reports, not super central to our operations, except administratively. Going forward, we're going to have remotely operated systems. I mean, remotely operated in the sense that we don't need to be in the same location or the same city as the system we're operating. Ground robots that deploy off of a charging dock, drone in a box systems, etc. So this software platform will be not only a fleet management tool, but also the control interface and the data pipeline. So this is a big change that we're excited about. Again, a little challenging always to learn to do things in different ways, but kind of nice to only go to one place for everything.
Perfect. And then we've got the AI side. And so Key AI and Levitas are taking a different approach to their focus. So obviously with Key AI, it's a data management approach. And so we talked a little bit about that. So why is this having this asset management piece so important for any kind of asset owner?
At a very basic level, I would describe it like this. And this sort of reminds me of my previous life as a inspection grunt. But so taking robotic tools to gather inspection data is great. Fantastic. Now we have hundreds of thousands of photos of our assets. What are we going to do with that? Are we going to review it manually? Where are we going to store it? Are we going to print them and put them in a filing cabinet? I mean, I'm talking about sort of extreme examples, but this is where the need for a software platform to manage that data and possibly even do automated analytics on it becomes really important. And so that's where KI and Levitas come in.
Right. And so what we're going to see is a lot of these models being built, a lot of automating in terms of basic inspection functions. Some of the really exciting stuff, which we'll talk about in the advanced AI sessions, is going to be this multiple levels, because people assume that AI just does all this stuff, but there really is different things. Just there's the machine learning and just actually identifying it, and that's mostly what's happening now. But the really interesting stuff happens after that on the next thing, where it's going to actually make decisions, whether that's running a subroutine on an automated inspection mission or escalating something, or actually making a decision to create a service ticket based on the information. So actually doing analysis. And so that's what you're going to see evolving as we move through. And to me, Fraser, we talked about this whole idea of AI. It requires practice, right, to build the models. And so think about this: if you're a service provider, you're going to have customers that are asset owners that are going to have to train their AI to be able to recognize certain things, and that requires thousands and thousands of photos, video, etc. So, kind of an interesting opportunity maybe for service providers. What do you think?
Absolutely. That is a very interesting opportunity. I don't quite know yet how that would work, although I never do until it happens. Because this data belongs to the asset owner, but somebody will figure this out, and this is a very interesting opportunity.
Excellent. Okay. Next one, please, Jonathan. Okay, so what's going to be new at RMUS? So I want to talk about a couple of the initiatives that we have going that are tying into a lot of these key themes, and just to get some of you up to speed on what's happened. And again, speaking of movie references, anytime I can get an Austin Powers movie reference in there, it's a good day.
And thank you, because this is one that I actually
Yes.
understand.
So we do not, in fact, have. Well, I guess technically we kind of do have lasers. We have IR is technically lasers, so we do have lasers. We don't have any sharks, and LiDAR is a laser, right? So we do have lasers. Anyway, so let's go into a couple of things that we actually have, Jonathan, if you would. So I do want to talk a little bit about the RMUS Canada Autonomy Lab. This is something we just launched earlier in the month. We're pretty excited about it. Our launch partner for this is Ontario Tech University. We'll have Scott Knuckleby, who is the director of the Mars Lab there. He'll be on with us on Friday when we talk about what's in the lab, because we actually have a lab now. But what is the Autonomy Lab? And so really, this is an applied research center, and its function is to partner with not only research institutions like Ontario Tech, University of Toronto, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology out west, but end users, really advanced people, the Ontario Power Generations, Hydro-Quebec's, various public safety institutions that are really looking at applied research and applied trials of autonomous products, whether it's aerial, ground, or ROVs. And so the lab exists to facilitate the deployment and use of these kinds of technologies. So Fraser, from your perspective on the technology side, what excites you the most about this, and how do you see it, kind of playing out as we expand it?
Sure. So my favorite part of my job is figuring out the use cases and figuring out how to apply this stuff in the real world. So I'd like to use the example of a drone in the box because it's kind of my favorite example of a new technology that's going to be really impactful. And like with any new implementation, we have challenges and opportunities. And with this one, there are lots. So if we think about a drone in the box, we want to operate that beyond visual line of sight. That's kind of the point, is that we don't have to be on site to operate the drone. And so we have some regulatory challenges. This is a new consideration. Operationally, things go very different. We're planning missions to be on a schedule or done on demand, or we're sort of tuning in remotely to operate from a laptop somewhere. We have entirely different maintenance models. Our maintenance now happens on site with service vehicles rather than on a workbench back in the office. And then the whole data pipeline, again, is coming through the dock, hopefully to some central site, but maybe that needs to be via satellite link if the dock is really remote. And so this is what I sort of like to think about. We have lots of new ways to approach these things, and that's why we have the Autonomy Lab, to kind of work with industry partners to figure out exactly how that's going to go.
Excellent. So we'll talk about that on Friday, but we're quite excited about it. So, Jonathan, if you would. Secondly, I do want to kind of highlight our land, sea, and air focus. So obviously, we are the most known for what we do aerially. I'd say Spot recently separately. We've obviously done a lot of work. But for us, the ROV area is new for us, and we've expanded the land-based stuff beyond Spot to we have a suite of crawlers now. We have some wheeled robots for some more precision led inspections, and we have a number of different ones and partnerships in development there. And that's going to be important with our partnerships on the software side that we mentioned earlier, and that whole multimodal approach. So we want you as an inspection team or you as a public safety team to be able to come to one place really to work with on those specific areas of robotics. And so, Fraser, how does this approach, like, how does it excite you compared to just the aerial stuff?
Well, there's sort of these platforms are complementary, right? Many people have a need for the aerial data and data that can be captured from the ground and captured from underwater. And if that's the case for you, there's some obvious operational synergies. You probably can use the same teams to operate these systems, similar sort of maintenance programs, and so they're very complementary. And what excites me most about the new additions to this sort of multimodal framework is that they're here at all. Like it's super cool that we have them now accessible, because we kind of reached this inflection point with drone technology about 7 or 8 years ago, where the user experience and the value of the system became accessible. And then we saw this sort of explosion of adoption and widespread implementation of this technology. And we're starting to see that with ground robotics and ROVs now. They're a little bit more expensive, like they're just inherently mechanically more complicated. So the manufacturing challenge is greater, but they're here. User experience is great, value's coming down, and we're going to start to see that widespread adoption. So that's super awesome.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that we've certainly seen as route is a lot of organizations might be using one or a couple of different these modes in different groups internally. Sometimes not. And what we find though is once one finds out, hey, we have an application for this underwater, say, there's always applications for the technology aerially as well. And so some of the adoption has already happened. Like the business case has been proven. People are understanding of the value of remotely operated equipment, and that just makes the adoption that much more easy enterprise wide, which is pretty exciting. And plus it brings you together with people that have experience in different ways in the organization. So that's pretty exciting. Jonathan, if you would. The other one is the RMUS at Work program. And so one of the things that we've seen is as the equipment gets more complex, certainly as it gets more expensive, people are thinking about this. There's more, there's more risk deploying this at enterprise. There's more challenges often. People want to see some of these things. We don't, we don't want to get into the scenario. If you want to see something that is a demo, we have our road shows, which we'll be announcing this week coming up in May and June. You can have a chance to see the product. But a lot of these things, you really want to know with some level of comfort, is it going to work? Is it going to make sense on your site? And so at the At Work program, this is a proof of concept program that we have. We've been running this for a couple of years. We're expanding it. Fraser leads the program. And really, this is an idea of bringing the technology to you specifically. Jonathan, if you would. And really, this is some examples of some of the field work we've done. And generally, this is a 3 to 5 day program. What happens is we bring sometimes multi-mode, sometimes a single mode on site with the equipment. We run these things in your actual use cases, which we define internally, give you real results. You own all the data. And this does two things. It allows you to see firsthand, is this going to work on my site? Secondly, can we put together the beginnings of an operations and training manual if we want to roll this out? And thirdly, what should the data look like that we need? And so this does two things for you. One, for a small upfront investment, which is mostly credited back, you're going to get all the data you need for your business case internally if you're going to do this internally. Plus, you are already started on your operations and training manuals. Or if you decide you want to do this through a service provider, you've got service standards in terms of what you need and some kind of operating guide for them as well if you're doing your RFP. So your RFP is half written there as well. So a lot of benefits there. Again, I'll pass it over to Fraser. He's led a lot of these things. What have you seen? What are some of the things that companies have learned as we've done this over the first couple of seasons of the programs?
Well, it's different in every case, but almost always there's some valuable learnings, because typically some things will work and other things won't work. I can think of an example with a large resource extraction company in Western Canada where we went out with a system with sort of two use cases in mind, and one sort of didn't work at all, and one worked really, really quite well. And it's sort of obvious why this is important learning for the client. They know where to place that investment, whether the system's going to work or not. And it gives them insights into what other applications it may work for. And this is beneficial for us as well. The industry partner is learning, we're learning. This means we can kind of all move the industry forward. I've never viewed this industry as a zero-sum game. The better we can all do this work, the more rapidly the adoption will happen. And I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. And we've certainly, I think, to me, we've had a couple of these, which is really, to me, exactly how it's designed, where we had a prime use case. And in this case, it was Spot, failed at the use case. It couldn't do what we wanted in that environment. It was too narrow. It was falling on a conveyor belt. But what ended up happening was we did it on a completely separate use case, which ended up working perfectly right out of the box, and had huge safety implementations. And actually, from a value perspective, that use case was more valuable than the one that they were actually interested in doing it. So the trip was a huge benefit. And inevitably, when you get the technology into the field, which obviously you're a believer in, you'll get your operational, you'll get innovation people, you'll get them seeing it, and you come up with a number of different ideas. And again, this is the important thing of getting the technology on there with people that know how to use it and understand it in your environments. So this is something we'll be continuing, and as we expand the product line, Fraser is expanding the team in terms of delivering this as well. Oh, okay. So that was a wind turbine. So this is just a couple of pictures we had from a couple of these POCs that we've done. just so you can get a flare as well for some of the locations. So just before we kind of wrap up, is there any specific questions? If you have any specific questions, please feel free to throw something up on the chat in the chat. Let's see if there's anything. I've got a quick question. Somebody texted me. So John was asking, what are the biggest changes we see happening in the marketplace in 2023 overall?
Well,
so Fraser, what do you think is going to be the biggest change?
Well, we've touched on a few of them in sort of broad strokes. The single biggest that we will see, I think, is the adoption of drone-in-the-box technology. And I think that's potentially the biggest because this really opens up a completely new market. There are completely new use cases possible, completely different operation and ownership models for the equipment. And we'll get into more detail on that in another session. But to me, that's the biggest single development for this year.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other questions? Okay, so what we want to do is just before we go, Jonathan, if you want to cue that video up, we had the pleasure of our friends at DJI sending us over a doc back in November. So we were kind of privileged to get that out on a few proof of concepts with some forward thinking organizations. We will also be DJI's partner, one of them for the DJI dock here in Canada. And so we wanted to give you guys, it's about a 12-minute video or so. We wanted to give you guys a sneak peek at the unit. I apologize, it's a little hissy on the audio. We did it in the back warehouse, so not optimal. So if you have to take off, you can.
We do have a couple more questions if we want to answer those before.
Yeah, so I'll just warn you, and then we'll kind of close with that. But we did have a couple of new questions. Is there going to be new stuff coming from DJI in the next year? Yes, there is. There will. Obviously, they just launched the Inspire 3. There will be another product launch at some point in this year from the enterprise side that will be a follow-on. So that's all I know about that. But yes, there will be. There will be. Andrew's question, we've seen some ingenuity with Ukrainians putting payloads packages on the drones. Would that be something to look for in the future? That's a great, we'll be talking a lot about that in this afternoon session at 2 with the guys. Absolutely. I think what I mean, we were talking about it there. I think FPV is going to be the biggest takeaway from that.
Yeah. So this sort of cottage industry of product development that we're seeing there is extremely impressive. I think it really speaks to the potential of these technologies, and absolutely we will see some interesting developments.
Right. So I highly suggest you tune in at 2. Like that'll be some great information. You're going to talk about it. We obviously don't want wars, but whether it's medical innovations, product innovation, they rapidly drive innovation, and drones is one of the biggest beneficiaries of that, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what your perspective is. Calvin, how transferable is this for underground infrastructure inspection, sewers? It's very It used to be we really had the flyability Helios as an option. Now there's viable alternatives in that cage thing. There's pipe crawlers. There's the pipe trekker from Deep Trekker. There's some other ones that we're building. So it is extremely viable now, particularly with some of the comm systems. So that's probably the area that we get asked about the most, particularly out west, and I'm pretty excited about that as well.
Yeah, there are some notable challenges with underground operations, particularly sewers. One is communications with the robot, and the other is proper geolocation, because obviously GPS doesn't work underground. We have SLAM-based technologies that can kind of keep that pretty tight, but again, depending on the environment, not always. So there are some notable challenges. A lot of work is being done in that area, and yes, certainly it's a lot of the technology is applicable.
Perfect. Okay, so we had anything from DJI for an M600 replacement. We do love the M600s. DJI, again, I'm not speaking for DJI on this. This is my opinion. So DJI is not sorry. DJI is definitely not going to produce an M600 replacement that I know of. My opinion is they will not do anything bigger than the M300. Again, I'm not speaking for DJI in that part. So the good news though is Inspired Flight out of the US has basically a US made M600. So of course it's US made. It's going to be double the price, but it's still a very reasonable platform. It is actually an excellent platform, and all the things that we love about the M600: interoperability, modularity, easy to plug in. It has all of those things, and so this is a great example of a US company copying a Chinese product that we love. So I guess turnabout is fair play there. And those are available now, and so we can definitely hook you up with those. Taylor asks, will we be working with Brink? As of right now, good luck to Brett in his new challenges, whatever that's going to be. We are still partnered with Brink. I have not seen the new drone. I have heard internally indoors it's the best performer, better than Skydio. That's a bold claim, so we'll have to see that. But yes, we're looking forward to continuing our relationship with Brink as well. Thomas, what are the third-party AI development companies focusing on? Agriculture. A great question, Thomas. So I think that Levitas, Key AI, the ones that we are primarily focused around infrastructure. So obviously Key AI's strength is corrosion and concrete defects, Levitas is involved in gauge reading, change detection, and so for things like missing fire extinguishers, open doors, as well as some advanced autonomy. On the obviously on the military side, you can imagine it's going to be identification of good and bad guys, vehicle tracking, and you can start to see this even in the DJI and Autel products with the vehicle tracking. That's those are AI applications there as well. LiDAR classification, image recognition, yes, for sure. Agricultural, I'm sure there are people working on it. It's not something that our partners focus on. LiDAR classification, also sonar. Key AI, Michael and his team are working there, so I highly encourage you to check out Michael's session on that and ask him some of those questions specifically there as well. Did I miss anything there?
Nope, it's definitely all three of those areas and more.
Perfect. So we're going to queue up the video, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up after that, because I know we're kind of getting to the edge of the time. The video will take us over. So please do join us for any of the remaining sessions that you have interest in, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. And thank you for joining us for the intro. And Jonathan, if you would roll the video. All right, you've all been waiting for it. What is underneath this covering? Fraser's a 10. I'm like a 10.5 excited. So let's unveil it now and talk about it. Fraser, if you would get an end. This feels very Price is Right now. So there we go. Welcome everybody to the DJI Dock first look. Very excited to have it here with you today. So the first thing, obviously, those of you that met us in person know that Fraser and I are both 6'6", so that will give you an idea of the scale of this particular product. So first thing you're going to look at, we're actually not 6'6", so I made that up, as you know. It's about 48 inches by 48 inches, a relatively small square. So, drone in the box. This is a very small and simple drone-in-the-box system from DJI. So once again, we have a winner. So we'll be excited to show you our first look at this today. Should we open it up and show the people?
Let's open it up.
Let's open it up. Should we cue the dramatic music?
It makes its own music.
Oh, okay. There we go. So first of all, very simple operation, as you can see. So one of the things we've been working with Drone in the Box systems now for about 18 months. We have some very good ones, some very good partners. This is probably simplest of any of the ones we've seen for design, wouldn't you say, Frank?
I would. So mechanically, relatively simple. So very few moving parts. Charging is done in a very simple way, so less to go wrong in the field. And then also from the point of view of the operator experience, it's relatively straightforward, which is a positive thing.
Excellent. So relatively simple. It's not super heavy. It's about 220 pounds. So Fraser and I, although we are obviously jack beasts, are able to lift that out of the truck by ourselves. And so it does fit into Fraser's swanky Toyota Tundra and Tacoma. Which one is it?
It's the Tacoma.
So the Tacoma, the smaller, not quite as big and gas guzzling as the Tundra, but it does fit in there. So all those photos you've seen about having this mobile are absolutely true, and we have in fact had it mobile.
We have. We've even deployed it out of the bed with pickup. So for transport and install setup, that makes things a little easier.
Okay, great. So why don't we start with that? Why don't we talk about setting up? What was the first thing about setting this up that really you noticed?
Well, it's not super complicated. We basically just need power and internet. On setup, we do need RTK connection one time, but setup was pretty seamless.
It's really impressive. So again, we've been mentioning that we've been working with Drone in the Box systems for about 18 months now, and the other ones we've seen are often significantly bigger than this, significantly more complicated, and they take 2 or 3 technicians a day or more to set up. Not the case with this one at all.
Not at all.
So what do we need to actually set up and deploy this?
We really just need an electrical connection and grounding. We need decent quality internet. We need an RTK N-trip connection or an RTK receiver one time, and maybe 2 or 3 hours of time for first time initial setup, and we're ready to operate.
Yeah, incredibly fast. So what do we need the RTK for, Fraser?
We need to localize the dock very precisely one time. After that, it'll store that information. It just needs very precise convergence on where it's actually located on setup.
Right, and that'll be obviously for positioning and ongoing operations. And so one of the great things is we just use our AMLID. We take it out, very small, portable, whatever, $3,000-4,000. Boom, you're done. You're set up, and you're away to go. Really, really impressive in that regard for sure. Secondly, the big thing is 120 volt. You can plug it into a wall, right? So you don't need any fancy electricians. Nothing wrong with being an electrician. We love electricians. You don't need any fancy ones. So that's another big thing. Let's talk about some of the preliminary testing we've done. It's been pretty cold.
It has. We've also had snow. Quite a lot of snow. So far, no problems. Good to see.
Right, so we're looking forward to testing this. You can't see it out there now, but this is the Great White North, and it is rather chilly when we're doing the testing, so we expect to see some more heavy snow. And that'll be the test, as it is with any Drone in the Box system, to see what you can do with heavy-duty snow. This one does have heating in the sides that will be designed for removing ice from the outside, so we don't have anything dropping on there. But that'll be the biggest thing that we'll be testing in terms of the design. So we got RTK set up, we got regular power, and we're needing an internet connection.
Yeah, so we can use a Cat6 cable to plug this directly into an outlet somewhere, or we could use something like an LTE module, which is what we've done to have this particular unit mobile for our testing. So lots of options there. You just need an internet connection, not terribly complicated.
Right, and so that's going to enable all kinds of different applications once we talk about the software, which we'll talk about in a second, because it's not as sexy as the hardware, obviously. So first thing, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, hey, that looks familiar, and that's because it is familiar. It's an M30T. So it's an M30T with a bit of modification on the legs, which we'll show you a little bit of later. Already registered with Transport Canada up here, already registered, I think, with the FAA down south, so nothing you need to know. As far as the regulators are concerned, it's a regular drone because it is a regular drone. So it flies like that, all the reliability, all the performance you've come to expect with DJI. 7-kilometer range from the base station. We obviously haven't tested it that far yet, but we know with DJI OcuSync, which runs from the box, not a controller, that it's going to work. It's going to work as good as anything on the market, so that's exciting. The other cool thing about this is it does have an LTE module, so it's not functional in the US at the moment, due to regulations with Chinese parts. It does work up north of the border here, so we will be able to test and deploy that. We've had good success deploying other systems through all Bell, Telus, and Rogers, all of those various carriers. So potentially unlimited range as long as you have Wi-Fi signals, or excuse me, LTE signals. Any other comments about the hardware for it?
Sure, just going back to the regulatory side for a moment. The dock does have space for payload attachments that would get bolted on top of the drone, so things like the speaker spotlight payload, but also in the future parachute modules that might be available for operations over people. Those should fit inside the dock with no problems.
Excellent, excellent. So one of the things you're going to know is regulatory approval. So RMUS is working pretty significantly with the FAA and Transport Canada on regulatory approvals and processes for any drone in the box, this one in particular as well, and that will be part of our deployment practice. Now, for a lot of you that are not going to be able to just deploy it autonomously, fully out of the box, it does work with the controller, so we do have a controller there. So you are able to take manual control and do all the kinds of things that you might need for your safety protocols as you do your testing. But it does work directly through the system, through the internet, through a web interface for remote operations. Lastly, we'll just kind of talk a little bit about a quick recap of the camera sensor. One of the things with these other drone box products is there's a wide variety in the quality of the aircraft and the quality of the sensor. So obviously this is the most reliable aircraft, or one of them certainly, that you're going to be able to get. So that's one box to tick off. The sensor for this one specifically is the stock one on the M30T, which is going to give you 640 res thermal, 12 megapixel wide, the 16x optical with a 200x hybrid zoom. So you'll have those opportunities there. Not really a mapping system. That we may see that option available later, but primarily right now for inspection kinds of applications. Also will fly for approximately 40 minutes. The really interesting part of it as well, 25-minute rapid charge time. I don't think that, we haven't tested it all the way, I don't think that's going to give you 100%, but for kind of continuous type operations or fast operations, it'll probably take you up to 80 or 90% really fast, which is going to be consistent with the DJI batteries there.
Yeah, and that should be adequate for most mission profiles, and also gives the ability to do a quick turnaround time. So into the dock for charging and then back out again to respond to something that may arise.
Excellent. So the dock itself has backup power for 5 hours, and why that's important is if you lose power in the middle of a mission, the dock will not lose any signals, and so the drone will be still able to return to home and shut itself down, and then close up the box as well when it lands. So you won't have to worry about just not having anywhere to come back and losing connection entirely.
And depending on the application, the type of site where this is going to be installed, a power outage might actually bring demand for more drone operations to inspect security, things of that nature. So you can still operate it in a loss of power event.
Now, software. So this system right now runs on the DJI Flight Hub 2 software. There is an API for the software available as well. So Flightbase already has software which they deployed at DJI Airworks on the first appearance of that. We are experimenting with it. So far, pretty impressed as well.
It is, yeah. Mainly because in addition to the functionality that we would get from Flight Hub 2, which is mission planning, mission scheduling, as well as full manual flight controls, there are also plugins for third-party apps like Pix4D, for example. So if you want to do your mission planning through Pix4D, then third-party dock operating software like Flightbase will allow you to do that.
Excellent. Now, Robotics is also working on something like this. There's other ones as well, but the point is you'll be able to do manual and autonomous flight from a remote interface, be able to control. All of those people are playing nice with each other, and so I hope DJI continues to approach this like they do their hardware with SDKs and open APIs that's going to allow for a kind of a development stack rather than some of the approaches which are trying to do everything from drone to base to software themselves. I don't think that's a winning approach. I think this is going to be the winning approach. Let DJI do what they do better than anyone, which is build the hardware and then work with third parties on the software if you don't like all the functionality of Flight Hub 2. So Flight Hub 2 is available on a on-prem server version as well. That's not cloud, so you can do that. The other systems as well, flight-based Watcs, are available the same. So we'll be working on having Canada-hosted systems as well for those of you that have data security issues. That's all part of the development process. Biggest thing is drone orchestration. Different things, you'll have different options for being able to do it. And some of the software functionality is incredible. We'll have a separate section where we'll dig into what you can actually do with these right now. Last thing I will add on those, for those of you that are looking at BVLOS applications as well, and are going to get into some really fancy stuff where you're going to need obstacle avoidance. Most of these systems, the software is compatible with the hardware and requirements of iris automation and some of the other radar and different base software. So you'll be fully able to do that. Anything else you want to add?
No.
I like it, man of few words. So that's our first look. So we'll be able to do a lot more testing. We'll have more in-depth information for you. RMUS is partnering with DJI on the beta program for this, which you'll see available in Q2. We are going to make the offer to 10 companies for a 2-week trial on site where we do all the testing. We work with you, regulatory, setup, data collection, software management, everything. So you'll be able to have the opportunity to get an in-depth look at what this system and RMUS can do for you and for drone autonomy. So for RMUS Canada, I'm Kevin Toggerell.
And I'm Fraser Hunt.
And thank you very much for joining us. We'll look forward to more in-depth coverage in the future. All right, we're back. We're back to you live. Thank you everybody for sticking around for that. I just wanted to correct one thing because it is important. With the Flight Hub 2 software, it is not available as an on-premise solution, and it is not currently in the roadmap. So Flight Hub 1 was, Flight Hub 2 is not. So that is significant. I do want to announce some positive news. We are confirmed with Robotics. We will have a Canadian instance available for all the beta test programs that'll be happening over the late spring. So there will, in fact, be a complete Canadian hosted solution available from Robotics. So pretty exciting there. So with that, everybody, Jonathan, if you want to just put up, there's our schedule. I'm not sure if we can edit that background, and no, we can't. Okay, so schedule for events again, 2:00 today for the Ukraine. Have a look at the registration page if you want to attend any of the other sessions. Those of you that were asking some of the AI questions, make sure you tune in on Thursday. I think that'd be a great day for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you through the course of the week. So. Until this afternoon, I'm Kevin Toggerell.
I'm Fraser Hahn.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you throughout the week. Thanks.